yes, it's good, but they never deal with what the budget is of those communities, of those municipalities. So it's really misleading.
And
That's just be one of the elements.
and there's a fine line to walk there because, you know, we do have a different budget than others, but at the same time, we're competing in the same labor pool. So there is a fine line we have to walk there for sure.
So is this a change in title only?
Yes, that's we just want to announce it as finance director because we think that's what we need and how it needs to be set up. Pam brought that to my attention that it's just time that we do that. So, and then as we start advertising it, well, we're not going to advertise it with a salary. We'll just say salary commensurate with experience and go from there and see who we get in here, and then we'll get together and see what we come up with. And if any of y'all, if anybody knows someone with a degree in accounting or with high-level bookkeeping experience with municipalities, we are going to be needing one very soon. So can I move?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. On item 12, this one is very important. Y'all know we had put out that list of 6 items we were going to pay for with ARPA funds and also to request the match monies, which Pam and I are already working on that process. The reason this piece of it is so critical to approve, as y'all know, this and the improvements to the Jaybird plant are critical to keep water on that part of town. We know the Jaybird plant was rated last year at 94%. On Thursday, we got a letter saying that plant was at 100% and not to issue any more water tap permits. So this piece of it will get about 110 customers off of that plant. And we have sent a letter, we sent the letter yesterday, I believe, back to Mr. Moody, the head of the health department. He had asked me to send him a letter in response. We're telling him the steps we're taking and that this is one of them. We think, based on our conversations, he will let us go ahead and start issuing permits for the people we've already issued will serve letters to, but getting this approved and started and, of course, opening the bids and approving the plant upgrades on September 9th is crucial. So I just wanted to preface this item with that explanation. Joe Frank, if you'd go ahead with the bid process.
Okay. As the mayor said, we took bids for this water line that we need out on Holly Springs Road. I think it's about 4,600 feet. It's not quite a mile long. And it replaces a 3-inch line that we acquired through the North Mississippi Water Association there. And so Cleveland Construction Company was the low bid. Argo Construction Company also bid on it. So you can see their bid there, $345,047.80.
And are you recommending that Cleveland's bid for the 10-inch pipeline is the lowest
Yes.
and best?
Yes.
Okay. Have they said how quickly they can start?
Hopefully it's going to take about a month, to get the bonds, go ahead and tell the suppliers to get the supplies ordered, pipe, valves, everything we need. So
Okay.
we get started as soon as we can.
And just so everybody's very clear on the ARPA match, we'll be spending ARPA funds to pay for this. We will be applying for the ARPA match. We don't have to wait till we've applied for the grant. Anything we do all the way back to May on these projects can be covered with the ARPA match. So if we get it, we'll be okay going ahead and starting now.
I'll make a motion to approve the 10-inch line with Cleveland Construction's bid price.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next is item 13, the approval to contract with the Desoto County Circuit Clerk's Office to perform the election duties for the November 8, 2022 local issue referendum for the Parks Capital Improvements 1% restaurant prepared food tax for a fee of $1,050. The city attorney has reviewed the contract.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is the approval to pay 10 Carbon Machinery $3,960 for some 4-inch check valves.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. As many of you know, Robert Carter, who is the chairman of our planning commission, got a promotion at work and decided to resign from the planning commission, which left an opening. Alderman Piper and the planning director, Austin, had interviewed a couple of people, and the name put forth was Justin Max to be the replacement on the planning commission to replace Mr. Carter. But that'll take a motion and approval from the board to do that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Would you like to come up, Austin, and start with the projects on the list? And for some of these items, there was someone who was going to be presenting in Senatobia.
He made it in time.
Oh, he made it, okay. I didn't remember who it was, so we're good.
All right, the first item on the agenda tonight, PL 1586. The request is an add a plan text for 4/10 of an acre, and the site's currently zoned PUD. The project location is south side of East Valley Street and east of North View Street, Section 13 and 18, Township 3, Range 7, and 8 West because of the split parcel line. The applicant, Greg Smith, made a quick trip from Senatobia and is here on behalf of Butch Davis, the owner. And as I mentioned, the two parcel numbers in your staff report are the project locations, and for reference, this is just the parcels directly behind the old Fred store, the Jenkins Lumber current location. Originally, the applicant requested an R8 medium-density residential zoning, recommended for approval by the Planning Commission on February 8th. At the April 5th Board of Aldermen meeting, the applicant requested to revise his submittal to PUD as the land use designation and to bring back the text at a later date. And so that's what tonight is that plan text coming back. The reason for this change, in the meantime of the Planning Commission and the board, the applicant realized that two 8,000 square foot lots would not fit on the lot. And so with the PUD designation, it gave him some creativity to offer a little bit of common open space and for him to present the home design that he wants to put on these two lots to give you a better idea of what the end product's going to be. The surrounding zoning districts are R10, single-family residential, and then C2 against Commerce Street with the existing commercial I just talked about. The future land use map designates this area as mixed use, and so the recommended zoning districts are PUD, TND, and C3 zoning. So as stated, the zoning does fit the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. The three item criteria that the applicant responded to and our criteria for consideration tonight, and I'll read these quickly for the record, how the proposed amendment would conform to the general development plan, why this existing zoning district classification is improper and inappropriate, and what changes have been made in the area, economic, physical, or social, that have occurred that weren't anticipated by the general development plan, and that makes this proposed amendment appropriate. A little specifics on the plan in general. The end product of the PUD was two roughly 5,000 square foot lots, and the setbacks as dictated by the applicant are the front 20, side 5, and rear of 10. And this is something we went back and forth with the applicant on, of that front setback. And so as you're driving down the street, it would match the existing homes on the street of the setbacks of what they have around them. And so that 20-foot front setback would be consistent with what's up and down the street. The proposed minimum home square footage is 2,500 square feet, and there are pictures of a proposed home in the back portion of your staff report. And the common open space on the plat shows an open courtyard, but realistically what it is that's what they did to meet their 10%. The site was so small, the shared area in the back was the only possible place to put their 10% that would qualify them as required for a PUD. So what you see is that common open space in the back. It could be shared maintenance of a fence, a little bit of a shared backyard, but practically speaking, it's just to meet their 10% designation. There are, under staff comments, the next process, if approved tonight, would be a plat coming back in front of you to divide these lots off of the commercial lots in the front, because right now there's two long skinny lots that border commerce and the street in question, so they would need to subdivide that off. And there are proposed motions to approve, deny, and/or table in your staff report, and I'm available for any questions, and Mr. Smith is here as well.
Any comments from the board or questions? Is there anyone here to speak on this issue tonight? Yes, sir.
Greg Smith, Mendrop Engineering, 2595 Country Club Road, Senatobia. I just would be here to answer any questions you may have, but I'd like to add, and correct me, Austin, if I remember this wrong, when the planning commission approved it, they approved it with eliminating the common open space, if I remember right. To recommend that, and we're perfectly fine with that. It'd be a lot easier and less parts involved, but we'll leave that up to your discretion as to whether you want to do that or not. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions or comments from the board? If not, can we have a motion?
Would we need to, Austin, would we need to eliminate that common open space this evening, or could we do it at final plat?
If you want to do it tonight, I'll catch it at final plat based on your motion tonight.
But didn't you say it was required for the 10% or?
In order to not ask for a variance, he had to present it somewhere on the plat. Y'all have the authority to waive it or reduce it, but in order to bring it to you without a variance, I had to have it on the plat.
Okay.
Any other questions? Could I have a motion?
Mayor, I motion to recommend approval on the rezoning request by Mr. Greg Smith on behalf of Miller Farms LLC and Butch Davis, owner of the property of 0.4 acres, identified as parcel numbers 308-613-001, 0012700, and 307-418-002, 5100, located on the south side of East Valley Street, east of Northview Street, and west of Northern Street in Section 13 and 18, Township 3 South, Range 7 and 8 West, by adding a plan text based upon the following findings: 1, 2, and 3, and to waive the requirement of a common open space.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Item 17.
Next project number, PL 1623. It's very similar to the last application we had, and it's actually the same applicant, but the request is to add a plan text to a PUD designated district without a plan text, and I'll give you a little project history in just a second. The project location's the southwest corner of Holly Springs and Getwell Road, Section 21, Township 3, Range 7 West. Mr. Greg Smith of Mendrop is representing Ridgestone LLC, which is Butch Davis, the property owner. The project size is 54.13 acres. The parcel number is located in your staff report. And the original request on May 18th was to go to an R12 rezoning. At the Board of Aldermen meeting, he requested to go to PUD with the opportunity to bring a plan text back later, and that's what we've got in front of you tonight. The future land use map and the comprehensive plan represents master plan residential low density, and there's a description in your staff report. And the applicant, the density proposed in this development is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and the master plan residential is very similar to Jefferson, St. Ives, and the similar densities proposed in this location. The Planning Commission heard this application at their June meeting and recommended approval to the Board of Aldermen, and the three discussion topics from the previous zoning application are the same, so I won't read them again, but the items 1, 2, and 3 are legal criteria for consideration of tonight's application. The PUD requires the list on your staff report on page 2, items 1 through 6, and the applicant has answered each of those questions, and I'll go through these very briefly. The minimum home square footage is 2,400 square foot. The number of lots is 99. The minimum lot size is 9,600 square feet, and it goes up to just below an acre as the largest lot in one of the corners. And that calculated density is 1.8 dwelling units per acre. And this, like I said, is in conformance with a comprehensive plan of a recommendation of 1 to 3 units an acre. The common open space proposed is 11 acres, or roughly 20%, not including medians or streetscapes. The Planning Commission did request that any trees located on the surrounding property or inside of the common open space areas remain intact above a certain caliper in accordance with a tree ordinance, and the applicants agreed. The site was previously logged via a logging permit about a year ago, I believe, and so any existing trees you see on the site now are proposed to remain inside the common open space. The plan text does include some general building elevations of what you could expect. And one thing to note is on the connection to St. Ives Subdivision, we would like to request in any motion of approval, if you also see fit, that we do request the street stub to the property line to ensure a connection with the surrounding subdivisions. And so that would be the connection on the southwest corner of the proposal. We want to make sure these subdivisions butt up to each other, because a lot of times we've seen is if there's a ditch in the middle, a developer will go to each edge of the ditch, and we lack a connection. So that's something we did consider. And like I mentioned, the average lot size and the minimum home square footage are comparable to Jefferson Place and St. Ives, and subdivision covenants would be required for a final plat when they come back if this is approved tonight. So the text in front of you is to add a plan text to the currently zoned PUD. Holly Springs and Getwell will be improved per the subdivision covenants, and we have had discussions with the applicant on the water supply and how they will be required to use the Lauder Road plant to further ease Jaybird's current issues. Mr. Greg Smith is here for any questions, and I'm available as well. And there are proposed motions to approve, deny, and table in your staff report.
Is that stub out to, is that the road there located between lots 28 and 30?
Yes, sir.
We'll also address it from the other side when we do St. Ives Phase 3, I believe, when they come back, to make sure this group and St. Ives know that that's got to be connected.
I thought it was going to be connected at the back of St. Ives where they're developing right now. It's not going to, it's going to go further back,
I think there's one more phase to go.
one more phase before they connect and they have another outlet in that? Because they only have one entrance and one exit, as we know, in St. Ives, which is an issue.
Currently, they changed the name, I can't remember, but Timber Oaks, Chad Fisher's development in between in the county, is proposing stub roads to each. So that would provide one exit and entrance additional for them.
For them when his county development is done.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
And then they'll all connect at the back on Getwell Road. Jefferson and St. Ives, third phase.
With this proposal tonight. And that's why I wanted to make sure on that stub street that we would dictate it go to the property line to make sure.
I have a question about the houses. So they give an example, but it says it's just an example. When, at some point, some PUDs give very specific requirements on houses. Is that, I was expecting to see something like that in this. Is that?
This is the time for specific pitch requirements. I did ask to match the pitch requirement in Jefferson, and the applicant agreed. But other than that, and then the minimum home size and the pictures, that's all we have.
Okay. I mean, I would like to see more detail on that aspect. I don't know if anybody else is.
You know, if they're planning on making the construction entrance off Holly Springs Road or Getwell Road?
I'll have to defer to the applicant on that one. I'm not sure.
Probably Getwell. Actually, whatever your preference is, I know the contractor would like to build access to both places. I would think there's less traffic on Getwell than there is Holly Springs.
There would be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Would be glad to make that, access for your preference.
This is going to be coming in off of Getwell.
Other questions and concerns? Alderwoman Lynch, you were saying you needed more architectural detail. Could you address that this evening?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons why we use the PUD is to have all that information spelled out before we agree on anything. And, I mean, just others in the past have been way more detailed than just a example that says actual units may differ. I just thought that was part of it, so I didn't know if this was like preliminary thing. I mean, I don't have any specific details that I can share, but I just feel like that's an important piece.
I know in the past, in years past, we've seen them that, show what the columns are supposed to look like, what window details are supposed to look like, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So is this whole area getting city water and sewer?
Yes, ma'am.
But not on the Jaybird plant?
I did tell the applicant with the current issues, we've had some preliminary discussions about valving or going back to Lauder Road, so he's aware that the Lauder Road plant is underutilized, and he's going to have to figure out a way to use it.
Is there anyone here to speak on this issue tonight? Greg, you want to come say something or be available for questions again?
Yeah, this is Greg Smith, Main Drop again. I'm available for questions. We do agree to put the stub road to the property line, which is on our side of the ditch, by the way, but we'll take it to there. On the water issue, we'll do what we can to meet the city requirements to, valving, whatever we need to do to not feed off that plant that's kind of overcapacitated. We'll work with the city engineer on that. But, and we'll be glad to provide any more detailed home plans to you. I'm sure we have them. I'm sure we got them. This builder does a lot of work in town, so I imagine the construction will be similar to what you've seen before. So, but we'll be glad, happy to do that, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Austin, when could they bring more detail back on the home plans? When would be the appropriate time if it's not tonight?
It's not tonight. The next catch would be final plat, but you could say prior to issuance of construction drawings approval.
I can have them in short order.
Is there anything specific, like you said, just as many details as possible to include in the covenants, I guess? Just so we're clear on the next meeting you come back.
Well, can I give it some more thought and get back to you? Okay.
I would say if there are any like specific, building designs or anything like that, I know that we get those sometimes. They call this the Georgia house, they call this the whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And they may not have that many specifics, but we've got something with 4 houses, and is it going to be 4 houses built 25 times, or is it going to be, what? And it may. And,
I really can't speak to that. I don't know how
Right.
many times they're planning on building a house.
Oh, I understand.
It'll probably be per customer, but I'm sure they have some plans they know they're going to build, and we'd be glad to provide them. So.
My question is, this be for both engineers now. We know the property already been clear cut and all that. How many builders gonna be building in this right now?
I really don't know. Probably at a minimum 2, and it's be probably.
And my next question is that, Mr. Frank, how can we ensure that these different builders, once the plan is approved and everything, don't change the drainage plans? Because that's our nightmare. And this is the time now that we catch this on these 90-some homes. If we don't catch it now and put some things in place, we're gonna be back here in a year and a half with people before us saying that they got a problem and want us to fix.
Well, that kind of falls in my lap there.
Well, I know it always falls in your lap, but we end up holding the bag.
Yeah.
And my point is, I want our engineer to make sure that we have some stuff, and along with our planning director, that we got some stuff in place this time, that it don't fall back on us. We know where the responsibility lies, but we end up at the complaint line. Right?
yes, sir. So to address some of that, so we did have the first meeting of our Drainage and Stormwater Committee earlier this month, and we have a second meeting set for August the 30th to look at whether it's model ordinances or what we can do to address some of these concerns and processes from the engineering standpoint and from the planning standpoint.
I
So-
agree with you. My point is this, I understand the committee is working, but by the time we do ordinance and all that stuff, we talking about months down the road, but we got something before us now. I want our engineer and our plan director to put some things in place now, what we can do, while y'all work on that, because by the time frame, we got to advertise, do all this other stuff, so they gonna be doing construction and everything else by the time we get it done, but I applaud y'all what you're doing, and it's gonna help us.
I think it will. I mean, I can't speak to the timing specifically of how
Right, that's
everything will.
what I'm saying, that's my point, is if they can do something now, or if we wait on that, then we'll have to just stop all construction. I know that can't happen, but I do know that they can come together with some agreements in writing to make sure that this don't happen.
Mr. Smith, when do you think the first lift of asphalt will be in, you'll be ready to start constructing houses and selling lots approximately?
Fall, possibly, if we're lucky, spring, the latest. Because they're gearing up right now to start the process of moving dirt.
It'll be quick.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Be a typical Butch Davis deal.
But I think we can put some stuff in place, committee still working.
Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns? Alderwoman Lynch, would you like to make the motion to address your concerns?
Let's see. So, where are we? Okay. I'd like a motion to approve the rezoning of parcel number 307521-000-000900, which is a 54.13 acre tract located on the southwest corner of Holly Springs Road and Gitwell Road in Section 21, Township 3 West, Range 7 South, from the A Agriculture District to the PUD Planned Unit Development District, with the project text, and is that part of this? And preliminary development plan to be submitted for review and approval at a later date.
That's tonight, yes.
Okay, so scratch that parentheses. Based upon the following findings, 1 through 3, and pending some further detail on architectural and design guidelines.
Yeah, would you mention the street stub in your motion if you think it's
Oh.
appropriate?
And somebody refreshed me on that, the street stub, I wasn't,
To the property line.
to the property line, to not leave any incomplete streets.
Second.
There's a second to that motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next is item 18, the 2550 West Street rezoning.
Yes, sir. The project PL 1633 is a request to rezone .4 acres from C3 Commercial District to R10 Single Family Residential. It's located at 2550 West Street, south of Center Street, and north of Loesher, Section 13, Township 3, Range 8. The applicant's Todd Steele on behalf of Ron's and Missy Black, the owner of the property. The current zoning of C3 Commercial is requested to R10 because the current use of the property is illegal non-conforming. So there's a family living in the house, and currently, if it was to be substantially rebuilt or need to be rebuilt, it couldn't with the current zoning since it is legal non-conforming. The lot is currently not platted. It is located in the Courthouse Square Historic District, and so, like I said, if it's need to be rebuilt, it wouldn't be able to, but it would be required to be in conformance with all the preservation ordinances, being it is in the historic district. The subject property is requested to be R10, and the zoning districts are on the north is C3, south is R10 like requested, east is C3, and west is R10 like requested. So with the future land use map projecting this property to be mixed use and considering the surrounding zoning, this would be in conformance with the city's general development plan and the future land use map. The The discussion is the same as the previous two on items 1 through 3 about the conformance to the general development plan, how the existing zoning district is appropriate or improper, and what changes have occurred, and the applicant did address those 3 criteria in the staff report. If it's ultimately approved, any future development of this property would be required to go through Historic Preservation Commission for any rebuild or major modification. So the zoning doesn't change that clause at all. So it's still located in the historic district and would be required. And in short, the applicant's wanting to correct the use of the property, which is single-family residential, to be in line with the zoning district of R10 residential. There are proposed motions to approve, deny, and/or table. And the applicant, Mr. Steele, and Ms. Rons and Missy Black are available, and I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Okay. Any questions? Is there anyone here that wants to speak? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Mayor, I motion to recommend approval of the rezoning request by Todd Steele on behalf of Rons and Missy Black, owner of the property, to rezone 0.4 acres from C3 Commercial District to R10 Single Family Residential District based upon the following findings 1 through 3.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We will move on to item 19, PL 1636.
Yes, sir. PL 1636. This is a request for final subdivision plat of the Chapel Grove PUD subdivision. This has been on the agenda twice before. We've been working with the applicant on a water line issue, which we do have a resolution to tonight, and I'll get into that in just a second. It's located on the northwest side of Robertson Gin Road, southwest of Pondview Circle, Section 23, Township 3, Range 8. Applicant is Mr. Greg Smith again, Mendrop Engineering Resources, on behalf of Butch Davis, Montclair, LLC. The PUD consists of 73 lots, 70 single-family lots, and 3 common open space lots on 67.57 acres. This was originally rezoned at the April 16th, 2019 meeting, was actually recommended for denial by the Planning Commission April 10th, and ultimately approved by the Board of Aldermen, and those minutes are attached in your staff report for a little background of the application. The lot, our required setbacks are listed in your staff report, 40-foot front, 15-foot side, and 35-foot rear to conform to the preliminary plan and any subdivision requirements. As presented, this does substantially conform to the preliminary subdivision, which is our legal criteria for approval. So the preliminary subdivision was presented on behalf of, excuse me, when the PUD came through. The subdivision comments in the proposed motion are all our typical subdivision comments. The only thing that differs is item 8, and that was something that came up in that original Board of Alderman minute, was that the road shall be 30-foot wide to include a 5-foot bike lane, and it is constructed as such. And so we did just include that just to make sure in the typical sections. The plat's attached to your staff report. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant's available as well. I did include the PUD text to provide any detail in the background of this application as well. And like I said, I'm available if you have any questions. Oh, excuse me, I forgot to talk about the water line. The back and forth on the applicant originally was to create a water loop to go along Robertson Gin Road to loop just to the south of the ball field. Originally, the plan was to stub straight out on the property formerly owned by Charles Stott, and we discovered that the existing sewer easement would not contain both the water. It wasn't big enough for the water in the sewer line. So Joe Frank went back and came up with a proposal that the water line come out to Robertson Gin Road and extend north. And what's been discussed is that the contractor will pay for all installation and material of the pipe if the city negotiates the utility easements along Robertson Gin Road. And so that's the proposal that Joe Frank came back with, and I'm bringing you tonight for the proposal on water to create that loop. And so that was the reason for the tables, to work out some of those details to bring you that proposal tonight.
Also, wasn't this project also exempt from curb and gutter?
Yes, sir.
And exempt from sidewalks.
And I think that's where the additional 5-foot of bike lane came in. The connection to Montclair subdivision is proposed to be gated. They've worked out a code with the fire department on the width of the required pavement and the emergency notification. I think it's going to be a Knox box. So they are in communication with the fire department on making that fire accessible.
Concerned about traffic coming through there, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's been going on a long time. I remember this when I was on the planning commission several years ago.
Any questions? Any other questions? Is there anyone here that wants to speak on this issue?
Kelly Dion, 3495 Tate's Way. This is going to back up to where I live, and currently there's a very large pile of trees and such that I assume they're going to burn soon. It is from drone measurements about 130 feet from my backyard, my back porch. Are they going to be required to move this further? Because when they have burnt stuff, like on the other side of Montclair, we have ash all in our yards too. So if this is right behind my house, it's going to be miserable. And I did bring some pictures to show where it is.
So can anyone representing the applicant say if it's going to be burned or if it's going to be moved?
I would assume they're on the part right up against the property line. I'll talk to Butch tomorrow about that.
Because when I talked to Kristen at the planning department, she said it had to be at least 100 feet off their property line. If it's 130 feet from my backyard, it's not 100 feet off their property line.
Okay.
So I'll show y'all.
So
I brought the GIS down showing
Austin
their property
and
line.
Marshall, before y'all
This is
issue a
my
burn
house right
permit,
here.
we all work together to make sure it's in a
That's your
proper
concern
place.
there.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you don't want it burned, is that your,
Not right there, that close.
yeah, you want it moved.
I want it to move further. I mean, they have a
Yeah.
very large, it's a very large area, so they can move it away from our property lines.
Yeah.
So
All of
I
this
just
right
asked
there-
our planning director and the fire marshal to make sure that happens, and Greg seems to think they'll acquiesce. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We wouldn't have known.
Well, I noticed it right before the tree started getting green, and I called Natalie, and she was helping me look into it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak?
I can answer any questions if you have.
If there are no more comments or questions, is there a motion?
Make a motion to grant final plat approval for Chapel Grove PUD consisting of 67.57 acres located on the northwest side of Robertson Gin Road, southwest of Pundview Circle, northeast of Green Village Drive in Section 23, Township 3, Range 8, based upon the findings that the submitted final plat generally conforms to the approved preliminary plan for the planned unit development and generally meets the requirements of the city codes and ordinance, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 12.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
That's all you got? You got any more?
Unless y'all tell me I got more, I'll be glad to.
All right, next is item 20, PL 1637, Mackingvale Square Plan Unit Development. Austin, if you would get that prepared to present.
Yes, sir. Project PL 1637. This is a zoning map amendment, a preliminary development plan approval to revise the Hernando Hills PUD to account for the Mackingvale Square development. It's located on the west side of Mackingvale Road, north of Byhalia Road, Section 6, Township 3, Range 7. The applicant's Doug Thornton from AERC, representing John Stevenson with Mackingvale Square LLC. This is a 4-acre parcel requested to amend the Hernando Hills PUD, which was originally approved in 1988, and then again amended in 1994 to include 342 residential lots on 279.2 acres, ranging from 8,000 square feet to over 3 acres, and to include a golf course to represent their green space requirement. The future land use plan for the city's development plan identifies the subject property as master plan residential land use designation, which has a variety of subsets. And the full explanation is there in your staff report with the explanation and the consideration of what this plan is, and under the consideration that the density is balanced from the amendment to the PUD as a whole. This project is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The 3 criteria, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, about the conformance to the comprehensive plan, the district classification, if it's improper or inappropriate, and that what changes, economic, physical, or social, have occurred that were not anticipated by the development plan that would make this appropriate, have been responded to in your staff report, and we've given a brief description of our thoughts of those responses. Specifics to the plan, so 3 buildings are proposed, and I'll give a brief description of the buildings. The maximum parapet height is 65 feet, and so this is dictated in the PUD. So there's been some discussion about a required variance, and so the PUD, you establish your own bulk requirements. So the height of the building, the specific parking requirements, the uses, the number of units, all that's in this plan text. And so this plan text is the governing document for this development. For Building A, which is the first phase, the first floor is proposed to be restaurant and or retail, around 8,000 square feet. The second and third floor, the 2 available uses are loft and or office. And so both the second and third floor are roughly 8,000 square foot as well, which would put a maximum dwelling units of 8 per floor. So there'd be 16 in Building A. And then the 4th floor is proposed to be office with a rooftop terrace, roughly 5,000 square foot of leasable office. Buildings B and C of Phase 2 and 3 are listed as the same, and the first floor proposed to be restaurant or retail, as in Building A, roughly 8,000 square feet. And the second, third, and fourth floors of both these buildings are proposed to be office and or loft units, a maximum of 8 lofts per floor. And so overall, the maximum dwelling units proposed are 64 lofts. All uses on the first floor are proposed to be restaurant and or retail. And all upper floors are proposed to be either office exclusively, like in Building A, or office and or lofts, as in Building B and C. The proposed setbacks, front, side, and rear are located in your staff report. And this is important to note because it's a key feature of the development of the front yard setback being scooted all the way to McInville Road to really protect the walkability that's been created with the McInville Green Line, or walking trail that's been proposed, linear park. As I mentioned with the height requirement, the 65-foot number comes from the top of the parapet, which is required to screen utilities. The actual upper floor will be about 12, 13 feet lower than that, and I'll let Doug speak more on the specifics, but that is something that came up at the Planning Commission meeting, was the height of the building, and so the 65-foot is the top of the parapet. Parking requirements, the retail sales office, commercial recreation facility, and then the loft proposals are all dictated in your staff report. And so these are the calculations we'll use for when a certificate of development, if approved, is submitted. These are the calculations we'll use for the number of required spaces. The proposed development does have access to city water and sewer, and the preliminary text that you're seeing tonight does serve as a preliminary plat. And so if approved tonight, this does authorize the applicant to submit a certificate of development. So this governs all the land use for the operation. The Planning Commission did hear this application at the July meeting and recommended approval of application as presented. There is a proposed motion to approve, deny, and or table in the staff report. And there's a full project text included in the staff report, as well as the original plan text for the surrounding PUD to give you an idea of what's around it. And the applicant's available. I'm available for questions, and I believe the applicant does have a presentation as well.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward?
John Stevenson, 1589 Johnston Road, Hernando, 38632. Thank you for the opportunity to come forward and present. I think he's helping me here with the presentation. You know what? I don't really think we even need that, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I just wanted to address a few items before the board and talk about, you know, I've done a lot of walking and talking with the people in the neighborhood. And I think the concerns that we had in front of the Planning Commission, we've met with all of those people individually, and most of those I don't see here tonight. And so I think we've addressed the concerns of the neighborhood for the most part. So what I'd like to talk to the board about is just financial impacts for the city and kind of the nature of the McInville corridor. So our municipal, county, and state leaders saw fit to create Mackinville Road as a major arterial roadway for future development. And it seems to me, while the city has minimum standards that require, you also have standards that you can set based on the nature of the development that's occurring. Mackinville Square gives you an opportunity to set a much higher standard for the future development that's going to happen along Mackinville Road in the future, beyond what the current minimum standards that the city requires. This is very similar to the Silo Square development in South Haven, except I would say that it's actually going to be a little bit nicer than that. We're going to be spending a lot more detail on the property. And I think that will, set the standard for any future development, because everybody knows, or in the future plan, from the I-69 to Mount Pleasant by Hellia there, that's going to be commercial. So we have to decide what kind of commercial do we want it to be. Do we want standard strip centers and that kind of commercial, or do we maybe want something a little bit nice like we would see in Madison or Collierville or Franklin, Tennessee? I think it gives us an opportunity to set that standard. And it really turns Green Tea and Hernando Hills Subdivision into a walkable and a true golf community where you now have access to shopping, restaurants, where right now, it's great. You can jump in your golf cart and go to your neighbor's house, but there's really, beyond that, there's not much. So that's going to affect property values. In these type of developments, property values have historically gone up anywhere from 5 to 10% because of that. So the residents who are living in those subdivisions should see increases in their property values. And it's going to provide value to the city. We don't need any more infrastructure put in to build this. And it's going to increase sales tax. We estimated sales tax, City of Hernando's share of the sales tax produced by this development to be $111,000 approximately a year. Also, an additional, for the City of Hernando, an extra $72,000 a year in property taxes for no additional cost or maintenance on infrastructure. So I think it's a net positive for the city. I think it'll be a net positive for the neighborhoods around there. And I'm here to answer any questions, any technical questions. I would defer to Doug Thornton.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Stevens?
Can you talk about the timeline? I know this is 3 separate phases, so that first phase, I guess, is going to be just one building, and each additional building is each different phase.
Yeah, each building is a phase. The reason right now, based on construction costs, our estimates, obviously, they have been really elevated in this market. We'll probably do all the dirt work and all the parking lot and everything initially at once. And more than likely, that's the way we're going to do it. And then we'll build one building per. And the reason for that, frankly, is cost and risk. These buildings right now are coming in around $6 to $6.5 million apiece. So when you figure we'll be exposed between development cost and that north of $8 to $8.5 million per building, and to do 3 at the same time is a little bit more than I want to bite off, especially considering that this is a risk. Nothing like this has been done in Hernando before. And we have to balance financial risk with our dreams, and our dreams is to build beautiful, wonderful buildings, but we also have to look to the financial realities. So we're making a bet that the desire of people who want to live in Hernando, and these type of developments are specifically geared towards young professional, and from our research we've seen, young professional women tend to gravitate towards these buildings. They start in lawyers, accountants, and so it would not surprise me after we finish the first building that 70% of the residents will be single women. And they want that because of access control, safety, good neighborhoods. And so that's why. So I would anticipate this takes about 3 years to complete, 4 years if you figure in construction delays possibly, but we'll do it one at a time.
Saying 4 years for the completion of the entire project?
That's right.
What was the thought process behind putting the parking in the rear of the property compared to the front of the property? I know
So-
that was something that was talked about, but
That was a discussion between Austin, myself, the mayor, the architect, and a lot of that really goes to our town square and the look and feel of our town square. So the one reason we're submitting this at PUD, I said there's risk on our side, but there's also risk on the city side, right? And so there's a risk to maintain the architectural integrity and feel of the city of Hernando. So we needed to, we wanted to move it up for that walkable feel, so you hopefully feel like you feel when you're walking on court, around the courthouse. And then that also gives us an opportunity to tie that in to the linear park that's extending down McInville Road. It just seemed like the right thing to do. It also reduces some of the architectural risk for the city, I believe, as far as maintaining the look and feel of our community we all love. And that was what drove that decision.
Just a little history, I don't know if y'all know it, but the county administration building, when it was first proposed, was going to have the parking in front of it with the building at the back. And our planner at that time convinced them to move it up to the square and put the parking behind. And y'all kind of visualize what a difference that would have been with the parking up front.
The buildings are beautiful. I mean, that's a great idea, just to enhance the buildings itself.
I wish I could claim that idea. I merely acquiesced to that because I saw the wisdom in it.
They're gorgeous
Any
buildings.
other questions for Mr. Stevenson or for Mr. Thornton? And is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, any other comments or concerns before a motion?
I have a question for our planning director. Do you agree with the line of thought that by having a building like this, you're able to set a standard for a commercial corridor moving forward to say, this is kind of what the standard is for future commercial developments in this area?
I do. It's always easier to point something physically that we approve that.
Okay.
But I know there's being said out there, but we can't take this building and say everybody else got to build like this. That's what design and review and everything is for. But we saying, we trying to do too many things with this project. So I don't want the record to show, even though it was said by both people, but I want the record to show that this not saying that other developments got to be like this. It's not saying that this is going to set the standard for Hernando, that everybody got to be like me. That's not the case. That's what design and review and everything else, that's what our regulation is for. We don't do regulation on approving a project. I don't care how much people like it. We don't do regulation based upon that. Am I correct, Mr. Attorney?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think you're saying, in general, this is a good standard to set.
Yeah,
They
but
feel like the standard.
you interjecting though, it's just what we want to do.
Well, I think you are interjecting, Alderman Miller.
Yeah.
At the same time. we both
Right,
kind of-
well, that's what I'm saying. I just want to state that there's no legal precedent that said that this is to be like this.
I cannot agree more.
That's all I'm stating.
Any other questions or concerns or a motion?
I have a question for Austin. I just had someone text me. Was there some kind of petition against this that was ever submitted at the planning meeting or anything?
She submitted it to the chairman of the planning commission unofficially, and when she got up to speak, she didn't speak on specifics of the petition, so it's kind of unclear what really she was talking about. But there was something brought forward.
I think she was for the project's what I heard.
But I think some of the petition, I think the structure maybe was, I got kind of out of the vibe that they were against it. It wasn't very clear who signed it and why.
Okay.
All right, can we have a motion on the item?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of rezoning requested by Doug Thornton, AERC LLC, representing John Stevenson with McInville Square LLC, owner of the property, zoning map amendment, preliminary development plan approval of 4 acres, revision to the Hernando Hills PUD, Plan Unit Development District, McInville Square, located on the west side of McInville Road, north of Bahia Road, Section 6, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, 1 through 3.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item 21, Star Landing Market Final Plat.
Yes, sir. Project PL 1646, this is a request for a final plat approval, one lot on 3.47 acres. The subject property is located on the south side of Star Landing Road, west of Highway 51, Section 24, Township 2, Range 8. The applicant's Mr. Byron Houston of Houston Engineering. And like I mentioned, this is a request for final plat approval, one lot of 6.47 acres. This applicant presented this and a request to add a plan text to a C4 zoning district on the parcel at the last planning commission meeting. With the flow of the meeting, this goes before, just because we wait 30 days on the zonings. But little project history is, from best we can tell, this site was rezoned to C4 sometime in the mid to late 2000s. But there's no copy of the project text on file with our department or with the planning department of the county. And so what we've done is the applicants presented a plan text to show what that C4 zoning district is, and it's coming before you the middle of the September meeting. The current request is just to plat the lot because it's not currently platted. The access of the lot is required by MDOT to come to the southern portion of the site and on Star Landing Road to the far eastern portion of the site to share access with the existing home. The surrounding zoning districts, as you can see in your staff report, are almost all C4 except for the west. It's split between AR and C4. And the general development plan identifies this parcel as activity retail land use designation. The comments in your staff report are our standard subdivision comments. And when I mentioned the access, so on the plat, if you notice the shared easements on the southern and most western side is something that, one, MDOT required for their access permits, and two, to work on the surrounding property owner to share access on their driveway to eliminate multiple curb cuts that close to the intersection. And so the request before you tonight is to, for final plat approval of this one lot on 3.47 acres. The current zoning C4 and the plan text is coming before you middle of September to confirm what the development plan on the parcel is. I'm available for any questions if you have any, and Mr. Houston's available as well.
Any questions or concerns?
Did the planning commission have a recommendation for this?
They recommend approval.
Thanks.
I do have a question for Austin. Is there any kind of recommendation for number of gas stations for one city, or is there a ratio that we can go by? Because it seems like we've got 5 or 6 being developed at this time.
Several cities have come up with regulations on distance requirements or what side of the intersection they can go on. There's proposals to make them all by conditional use approval only to give an additional layer of review. Currently, we don't have that in process, but some cities do.
Any other questions or concerns on this? Not, is there a motion?
Mayor, I motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen on a final plat requested by Mr. Byron Houston. The subject property is located on the south side of Star Landing Road and west side of US Highway 51, Section 24, Township 2 South, Range 8.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 22, Austin.
The next two applications go hand in hand and are a companion application to the zoning that was approved at our last meeting. The project number is PL 1650, and the request is to vacate lots 2, 3, and 4 of the Grove Park Professional Office Plaza subdivision. It's east of 55, west of McInville Road, Section 7, Township 3, Range 7. The applicant's Mr. Vance Daly on behalf of Michael Austin, owner of the property. And at the last Board of Aldermen meeting, the subject property zoning was changed to R12 single-family residential from office. And the lots currently are platted within the Grove Park Office Plaza subdivision. And after talking with the Chancery Clerk's office, they've recommended to vacate lots 2, 3, and 4 in the proposed motion in your staff report in board order form. And once we file that the new subdivision, which is the next application to be heard, could be filed immediately thereafter. And so what this application would do is get rid of lots 2, 3, and 4 in the right-of-way, and the lot 1 of the existing office would remain. And so the final plat's the next application, and the action of this motion would be I would take this to the Chancery Clerk and vacate these 3 lots. And so there are proposed motions to approve and deny, and then the existing plat is located in your staff report for reference. And if you have any questions, I'm available, and Mr. Vance Daly's here as well to answer anything you may have for him.
Any questions on this item? Anyone here to speak on this issue? Thank you, Vance.
I'd like to make a motion here.
Go ahead, Alderman Miller.
Motion to approve an application by Mr. Vance Daly on behalf of Michael J. Austin, owner of the property, to vacate Lot 2, 3, and 4 of the Grove Lake Professional Office Plaza subdivision, and the property is zoned R2 single family dwelling medium district, and the rest of the verbiage.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We'll move on to item 23, the companion to this motion.
Yes, sir. And I did get a revised plat just as I walked in the meeting, and Mr. Joe Frank has got copies available for the board, and I can pass those out, but before we get started, just to provide you reference. Or do you have them? Yeah.
We're going from 7 lots to 6, right?
Yes, sir. So the project number PL 1651, the final plat approval for Grove Park Heights subdivision.
I've got one.
Location and applicant are the same as the application we just mentioned, and the owner of the property is requesting final lot approval on the existing 3 lots that were just voted to be vacated into 6 lots on 2.7 acres instead of 7 as listed in your staff report. The parcel combined lots 1 and 2 into 1 lot of 21,400 square feet. The drainage easement, we requested he mirror this application as on the previous plat. So there is a large ditch on the rear of the lots 1 through 4, and we requested that he keep that on this new plat for to keep the homes away from this drainage easement and this ditch in the back. We did request that he provide a location for a cluster box if required by the Postal Service. This is a little bit in between application since it is only 6 lots at the border of an existing subdivision that does have individual mail delivery, but we did want to count in case the subdivision did need a cluster box, and he's provided. And we did request him to mimic the 25-foot landscape buffer along Byhalia Road that is in the existing subdivision, and the applicant has agreed to do that as well, and there's a 25-foot landscape buffer. The future development plan of the city's general development plan recommends R12, R15, or R20 zoning districts, and the density of this application is in conformance with that plan. The discussion topics are all of our typical subdivision requirements, and we did request that he mirror the covenants of the surrounding subdivision, and the applicant did provide those covenants just to provide conformity of what's around it. And just for reference, the median island that is in place when you currently pull in the subdivision is proposed to be maintained by the out parcel commercial zoning district. So the maintenance of that will be with the office park as well, that remains. And so the revised plat in front of you from tonight shows 6 lots on 2.7 acres to be located on the previously 3 lots that we just requested to vacate. And Mr. Daly's here. If you have any questions, I'm available if you have any questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions or comments?
The median, the landscape median, who currently maintains that?
Mr. Austin.
Okay.
Commercial building there.
Okay, because it doesn't really look really maintained, I will say. I drove by it the other day. Who will maintain the buffer on the north side? The landscape buffer that you're putting in?
The HOA for that phase.
Okay.
So will that phase be a separate 6-lot HOA just on their own? Okay.
Any other questions?
Will the existing road be bonded, I guess, to, like, as everything's constructed out, like the road's torn up and everything, is it bonded out, or how does that work?
We're going to look at you, Joe.
Because we just spent money in there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Crack seal.
So would you request we get a maintenance bond on that section of road?
Because we talking about construction of 6 homes.
I mean, and you have those the little medians in there, big trucks going through there, they could easily get cracked, so.
So
I mean, it's what, maybe a quarter,
administratively, we'll have Joe set the bond.
it's like a quarter mile of road, it shouldn't be too much.
Any other questions? Not, is there a motion?
Can I clarify? And I don't.
Yes, Mr. Daly.
I don't know that it truly matters, but just a clarification. Originally, and I think Austin said it, that we combined lots 1 and 2 to make one larger. We ultimately today took the 5 away and turned it into 4, as opposed to spread that whole space out over all 4, so they were closer to size. Lot 1 being bigger because it's got a bigger ditch, but
That's right.
instead of just combining 1 and 2 into 1, we took one lot away and made it into 4. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
It looks much better, I think.
Those are suggested comments made and concerns over being able to build on that lot to begin with. And this came up in the planning commission, and this is totally not really a part of this, but it did come up in the planning commission. That island were somehow removed from right there. I don't know that anybody would object, so I'm just saying.
Although it does slow traffic down.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as we removed it, then they'd want a speed bump there.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing else, can I have a motion?
Mayor, I motion to recommend approval on the final plat of the Grove Park Heights subdivision by Mr. Vance Daly on behalf of Michael J. Austin, owner of the property of 7 lots on 2.7 acres located east side Interstate 55, west of McInville Road and south of By Hill Road in Section 7, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based on the staff conditions listed in the staff report.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Next is item 24, Health and Public Safety hearings.
Yes, sir. We have 2 health and public safety hearings in your packet, one of which I received an email from an attorney today that is under contract with a prospective buyer to tear down and renovate. And so on the 1670 CE Public Health and Safety, CE 1670 Public Health and Safety for 2879 College Street, I'll request to continue it for 60 days to give title work time to come back to know if I need to bring it forward or not. I think it's under contract to take care of itself. So I would request to table 68 CE 1670 for 2879 College Street for 60 days.
Mayor, I move to table CE 1670 for 60 days.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
And the second one on the agenda tonight, CE 1671, is a public health and safety hearing for 2815 College Street, which is west of College Street, south of South Street, north of Hill Street, and Section 13, Township 3, Range 8. The building owner that we provided service to is Freddie Mae Nesbitt, and it's in a trust for the care of Martha DeWeaver. We've spoken to the property owner, and there's a dispute in the family of the maintenance and future of the property, and it's falling into disrepair. It's 16/10 of an acre, zoned R10, single-family residential. It's currently unoccupied and deteriorating rapidly. We did a visual inspection of the property, notified the property owner via certified mail. No action's been taken, and she has contacted us, and I don't know if she plans to make any improvements to the property because it is a dispute with the family. We did post it in the paper, and we did post a sign on the property 15 days prior to this meeting, and the the state statute that we're following is listed in your staff report, and we have shown pictures of the property in your staff report. And so the purpose of tonight is we're looking for guidance of how to proceed. If you want us to authorize to make some major changes, we're here for that feedback.
I didn't get the staff report.
1671?
Yeah, that one's not in our
We have
package.
1670, but not 71.
It didn't make it off the printer, obviously, but it's not in mine either.
Okay.
So we're holding off on 1670. The 1671.
Yes, ma'am,
we need to make-
1670.
All right, this is gonna be tabled.
1671, I guess, didn't come off the printer.
71 is very similar to 70, that's the area that I represent, and on tonight, I would move that we, give them 90 days to correct the property. If not in 90 days, then we take the necessary steps to clean the property up.
Okay. And then do you want me to bring it back to the board in those 90 days beforehand, close to time, just to give you a reminder of where we're at?
Whatever the legal steps are.
Yeah, I think we would have to come back to the board for the board to legally authorize us to
Right,
demolish
that's
the
when we give them
property.
90 days, then we gotta come back and say that they didn't do it in the 90 days, and then authorize demolishing or whatever.
Yes, sir.
That's the most.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 25. This is a discussion on the new Weatherby Subdivision, Weatherby West, I guess, cross-sections. There's a lot of clarification that needs to be made. I know Alderwoman Lynch has been in discussions, as have I. Austin, if you would present that.
Yes, sir. The project number originally was 1403, which was the Weatherby West PUD rezoning, and there was lots of controversy going back and forth on the size of the lots and the connections in the subdivision. And the PUD document that's in place conflicts itself on the required cross-sections of what the streets are actually to be constructed as. And so in a PUD, the project text that comes before you serves as the preliminary plat. And so Nick reached out to us and said, well, before I submit construction drawings and build the subdivision, I'd like to get clarification from you and ultimately the mayor and board about what is approved on paper and what is expected to come back at final plat. And so the cross-sections in the PUD do not call for curb and gutter at all, and I think that was probably a mistake. And so the 8,000 square foot lots along closer to the road closer to Commerce, by almost any description would need curb and gutter, even though it was not described. And the developer agrees that curb and gutter and sidewalk is the best use of this, and so that's something, the first thing we need to clarify. The median in the middle part of the main boulevard of the subdivision was discussed heavily in the minutes, and the cross-section of the actual plan conflicts itself a little bit into two 13-foot lanes with no curb and gutter along the median. And what that would create is, I think, somewhat of a maintenance issue. And for folks turning around, they want to clarify, is that really what the board wants constructed? And if not, the developer has proposed to add a bike lane along this rural section in lieu of this median going along the main streetscape with a roundabout, and that's on the last page of your staff report, or the second to last page of your staff report, his proposal of what he would like to propose for those larger lots. And then the Royal Lane connection was discussed heavily in the meeting about the homeowners didn't want a connection. It didn't really serve a purpose for ingress and egress, and the developer's proposing to agree and not connect, but to use this space as a cluster box and mailbox location. And so those three things really are what we're trying to clarify with the board tonight before we move forward with construction drawings. And Nick Croonan is the project engineer and kind of brought this to our attention. And so generally speaking, the three things would, one, be the curb and gutter up front, and the developer agrees to that. Two would be the median, and if in lieu of the median, the board could consider a bike lane striped for a 29-foot finished section. And then three would be that Royal Lane connection for the cluster box location. And so that's something I didn't feel I could administratively approve, so I'm bringing it back for clarification of the board. And we did meet with Alderwoman Lynch and go through these scenarios with the developer and the planning commissioner, who was heavily involved at the time, just to bounce these ideas. And so that's what we've got in front of you tonight. And I'm available for questions, and Nick's here as well.
Didn't we talk about a roundabout? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So on the second to last page, third to last page, you can see the proposal for the developer with that roundabout to help transition from, on this page here, the small lots coming in, the 8,000 square foot lots, proposing curb and gutter and sidewalk. And as you come in, that roundabout helps transition. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's what the developer's proposing, and like I said, I couldn't administratively just approve that. Wanted to bring it for y'all before we got construction drawings going.
Comments or questions from the board?
I mean, the only comment I have is that, like Austin said, we all met and we're in somewhat of agreement, so it seemed reasonable to everybody.
I agree with all three of those.
Are you comfortable with that?
Any other questions?
Yes, because there's.
We will need a motion to clarify.
Like here, and a connection here, and potential other ones, so there will be other ways in it. There'll be multiple in and outs.
If everybody's good with that, can we have a motion?
What's in your papers? I'll make the motion, I'm just trying to find, here we go. Sorry. I move to approve the request, wait, no, that's not right. Somebody give me
Oh, I don't think there's a proposed motion in this one, just a recommendation. There's probably confusion there. Sorry about that.
Oh, we're approving the recommendation, okay. Move to approve the recommendation of the planning director.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. All right. We're moving on to item 27.
26.
The city clerk is here to help us on this one. This is to discuss the tax levy for advertisement and approval to advertise the public hearing and tax levy. I think y'all all had that emailed to you, and you've also got a proposed calendar for how this will work. Do you not? Okay. I will read the calendar. If approved, you got, okay, yeah, y'all do have it. So on the 18th, the tax levy, budget, and public hearing would be advertised. We're proposing a possible recess of this meeting to next Tuesday for a special budget meeting, and there will probably need to be one other after that. We'll determine that at that meeting. Then it will publish a second time on the 25th, and then that gives us another regular board meeting before the public hearing for adoption of the proposed budget. And I think y'all were all emailed the proposed tax levy for advertising, the split up of the millage. So basically, we have to have a motion to advertise the tax levy.
Motion to advertise.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Can I have a motion on the utility adjustment?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Before we recess, I just want to make a short announcement. Gia is not here, but Gia graduated recently from a strenuous 3-year program from the University of Arkansas's Community Development Institute. So even though she's been doing this work a long time, now she's kind of official and certified, and I want to applaud her for taking that initiative.
She's good.
If everybody's okay with the 23rd, can we recess this meeting to the 23rd for budget discussions?
And Mayor, just for the sake of discussion,
Yes, sir.
could we next year go with the proposed budget guideline date so we won't have to be?
Yes.
I
we
mean,
certainly can.
we are, other municipalities, the budget been approved, public hearing and everything, we still, I mean, we behind the power curve.
We're still struggling with audits.
I
By
understand.
next year, we will be on task and starting in May like we're supposed to. Yes, sir. I totally agree with you.
Sometimes even without the audit, we still could have some preliminary work done.
Yeah,
The meeting will be at 6 o'clock on the 23rd.
So even without the audit, we could still have the department's budget and all that stuff. We could do a lot of groundwork.
Okay.
because
Department will it be?
I'm not sure which departments. It'll be more than one, though.
I mean, I certainly agree with Alderman Miller. I don't think property tax revenue is going to go down year over year, so you
Right.
can always plug in the existing number, you can always plug in the existing sales tax budgeted number, and then any increases that are seen 30 days or 60 days later can be factored into whatever changes that you make. I mean, you could certainly cobble together something, June, July. It is a lot of information to digest in
Our,
a short period of
our
time.
problem literally is just labor. Because we're still in the audits, we can't close out the previous year. So our bookkeeping system cannot produce a budget worksheet. So every single line item has to be looked at and totaled, like manually. And y'all know there are 1,000 of them. And so every time we write another check, we got to retotal them and retotal and retotal them. So it's very labor intensive without being able to use the software. But we will be able to next year because we'll be caught up. Have a motion to recess the meeting,
Motion to recess the meeting till,
August 23rd at 6 o'clock.
23rd at 6 p.m.
Second.
All right, we are now in recess till August 23rd at 6 p.m. for budget discussions. Thank y'all.